Xenoblade Chronicles, a fantastic series of JRPGs filled with brilliant characters, breathtaking worlds, bopping and emotional soundtracks, and unforgettable stories. Monolith Soft is known for making the most out of hardware and crafting banger games. Like, did you see the black magic they conjured to make Xenoblade X run on that paperweight? But even with their utmost expertise in crafting these games, not everything makes the cut. Unused content is common in games within the industry and could be scrapped for reasons like deadlines or a change of focus. This content could include game mechanics, concept art, or character designs. Xenoblade isn't immune to unused content, as Xeno has a ton of cut content with each entry, to the point some need whole ass books to explain things not in the game. Last year I covered Xenoblade 2's unused content, which shit totally watched by the way, which contained a plethora of content left on the cutting room floor. The same goes for its sequel, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and while it doesn't have as much unused content as Xenoblade 2 did, as it had a longer development cycle, the unused content it does have is still interesting nonetheless. You're going to be here for a while, so sit back and relax as we go through all of the unused content of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. Shout out again to those from the cutting room floor as a resource for documenting many of these unused assets. One last thing before we get into this. Did you know that only 11% of you guys are subscribed? Be sure to click that subscribe button and leave a comment for more content like this, as it would be greatly appreciated. You'll be helping me out within the algorithm and my goal of 10k subs by the end of 2024. Alright, enough introductions and chilling. Let's dive in.
It's good to keep a record.
Alright, to start things off, let's go through some character designs. There are a bunch of unused designs for the main cast, heroes, and some of the consoles, thanks to the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Collected Works art book that came with a special edition 2 years ago, and the recently released Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Aionios Moments art book, which is more in line with Ulrus Records. Unlike Ulrus Records, however, the Aionios Moments art book also contains a column with Takahashi filled with him answering lore questions from the game. Lore shit isn't my expertise on this channel, so I'll just be linking a few videos and a translation of the interview down below. Alright, enough stalling. Let's talk about these designs. Starting with our main protagonist from the Kevesi side, Noah. The first design of Noah is similar to the one we have today, with the major difference being his face. He has a silly baby face that gives him a soft and cute exterior, rather than the strong-willed philosopher we know him as in-game. This design further corroborates the interview about the team's struggle coming up with Noah's design before the game's release. Whereas the first design is more in line with the final design, the second design, found in the extra section in the Aionios Moments art book, however, is a huge departure from what we eventually got. This design has a different color scheme with blacks and grays being the primary colors compared to the reds and grays of the final design. His undershirt has open shoulders, his jacket is puffier, he has fingerless gloves, and his boots are longer. This looks more fantasy inspired a la Xenoblade 2, and personally doesn't fit Noah's character of an Offseer, unless Noah's character was different at the stage of development, but this is just speculation. Noah's Ouroboros design also had some changes, with the first design having a horn on the left side and its wings being less prominent. The second design has a lot of horns and a mouth on his face, giving me Super Sentai vibes personally. The last piece of art is almost one-to-one with the final design, with the only difference being Noah's weapon being considerably thinner than his weapon / the Sword of Origin in the final game. Now on to Lanz. Lanz's design didn't change all too much from what we got in the final game. The first design has a blue undershirt and green cargo pants compared to the gray undershirt and cargo pants in the final game. The design in the extra section gives him a belt chain, different pants, and boots. Interestingly, Lanz's design was pretty much finalized since its inception. Uni, on the other hand, has a decent amount of design changes from our final design. The first design is very similar to the final design, with notable changes being Uni having a different jacket with a different material and a logo on the back, and different shoes, which look more in line with traditional Kevesi wear compared to Uni's clean-ass sneaks in the final game. I really like the jacket, but I don't think it would have been worth losing the clean design we have for Uni in the final game. The next design we have is one-to-one with Uni's final design, with the only difference being the green accents on her jacket and shoes aren't present, making it all yellow. We even got a little bit of a model view in the art book as well. There's also a close-up of Uni with her turn mark on her forehead instead of her boobies. Glad they made this change, as she looks kinda goofy with the mark on her forehead. Next up, we have an unused outfit for young Uni, with her having a long-sleeved sweater, longer shorts, and different shoes. I slightly prefer the current design we have overall, but this version of young Uni has barely any screen time regardless, so it really doesn't matter. Saving the best for last, we have Uni's design from the extra section in the art book. This design has the most radical departure from every design we've seen of Uni so far, with her having a different color scheme than her final design with the blacks and whites, a double-breasted coat, shorts, a pouch on her right leg, different shoes with her socks visible, and her having a pink ribbon across her waist. Honestly, I really like this design for Uni, but it's still fitting her personality, and I wish it was an alternate design for her in-game as a special costume. Uni's Ouroboros had a different design, with longer horns, massive wings sprouting from the back of her head, and a halo on top, giving this design an angelic vibe, which would fit Uni's role as a healer quite nicely. Now it's time to segue to our Agnian trio, starting with the Agnian Offseer and protagonist, Mio. Mio went through the most changes of the entire main party and has some interesting unused designs. The first one is near 1-to-1 with the final design with two tiny changes. She has a charm as a hairpin where her braid would be in her final design, and her core crystal isn't Nia's Flesh Eater core crystal seen in the final game, but in fact an Aegis core crystal like Pyra and Mithra. Maybe this would imply that all of Rex's children would have had the Aegis core crystal at this point in development, or just maybe Nia and Pyra just did the deed and yeah, Mio's actually Pyra's child instead. Still very interesting to see in the art book, even if it was merely a concept. Skipping over to the next page with the classic horny Saito art seen in these art books with Mio and dressing. Ya horny bastards. We have this design of a young Mio. This Mio design would have been used if we had seen the Agnian side of the collision from Mio's perspective. Would have been nice if we did get to see it from the Alrestian side, and would have added more of a balance to the screen time of Noah and Mio during chapter 1. The next design we have for Mio is from the extra section of the Aionios Moments art book, and it hands down has the most interesting changes yet. This design has Mio in a slender dress with a white and dark blue color scheme, with a bit of a floral design throughout her outfit, and having a bluish headband instead of the braid in her hair. We see this outfit in 3 different hairstyles. One is slightly longer than Mio's short hairstyle in the final game, another is fluffy, slightly braided, and is at chest length, and the last one is styled in a long braided ponytail. What's interesting about 2 of these hairstyles is what's missing. For the fluffy and braided ponytail hairstyles, both lack Mio's signature Gormani ears, insinuating that Mio wasn't a Gormani during that period of development and only came later on. This is further corroborated by some concept art that we'll go over in just a little bit. But this design and its accompanying hairstyles are quite the shift compared to Mio's final design. But which hairstyle out of the 3 do you prefer? Leave it down in the comments. Mio's Ouroboros had one notable design change seen in Choco's column in the extra section of the art book. This design is similar to the past 2 beta Ouroboros designs I've already talked about before. It has horns on the Ouroboros head and overall has more spikes across the design. Definitely prefer the final design over this one. Going from a character with several changes to a character with just one, we have Taion. Taion's one design change is the biggest jump scare out of the main cast. I have one question about this design. Where the fuck did his melanin go? This design has Taion with a different color scheme of green, yellow, and black, a lighter skin tone, goofy as fuck shoes, long socks, and a different afro. Taion most definitely got the biggest facelift from this concept to his final design, which is one of the best designs in the game. Lastly, for our Ouroboros members, we have the girl with the gall, Senna. Senna hasn't had many design changes outside of one design similar to Taion, but we do get some extra tidbits from the art book, like seeing Senna's flame bit of her hair down, Senna with no pants, for some reason, and a full body of her ether lines. YouTube, please don't demonetize, please. I need money. The design seen in the extra section is similar to the other extra section designs, having a different color scheme with oranges, golds, and blacks. She's wearing a sleeveless tank top with some gold gear across her design, an orange skirt, sneakers, black tights, and she has 2 little buns instead of her ponytail. This design is really cute, but it wouldn't get across Senna's gym rat personality, unless like Noah, she had a different personality at this point in development. Because if people were complaining about Senna's design not having any muscle pre-release, I can't imagine the discourse that this design would have gotten instead. Oh my. I also really like the little buns this design has, giving more Bridget imagery, even though the game and the art book deconfirms any relation Senna has with Bridget. Senna's Ouroboros design, on the other hand, has a few changes seen throughout the art book. The first one shows Senna with shorter wings than in the final, and it wrapping around her, acting as a cloak. The second design shows Senna's Ouroboros to be more sharper, accompanied by a pointed tip for the tail. In Choco's column in the extra section, we see various weapon concepts for Senna's Ouroboros form. It looks like Senna would have a battle axe, with it seeming to have a creature-like form as well. There's also another design here that kind of looks like an Ouroboros Bakugan? I don't know, it looks kind of weird, but it looks pretty adorable. That's it for our main party, but we still have a few heroes and Mobius to go over. Let's get started with our heroes. Ethel only had 2 design changes seen in the art book. The first one is similar to her final design, with the notable changes being her having a gold plate near her chest instead of being silver, and more black around the center of her outfit. The second design has Ethel more in line with other Kavesi soldiers with its jet black appearance. It looks really clean, but was probably changed to make her stand out more, and to keep to her moniker as Silvercoat Ethel. Next, we have Ethel's rival, Kamaravi. Like Ethel, Kamaravi has 2 design changes in the art book, with one being more drastic than the other. Starting with the Tamer design, we see Kamaravi in his final design, with the only difference being that he has a cloak on, which is honestly pretty cool, I can't even lie. The second design found in the extra section has a color scheme of oranges, blues, and blacks. His hairstyle is reminiscent of a flame, and he has a flame flesh eater core crystal. This design looks really good, very Verblade-esque based on how it stands out. It's a shame that it got cut. It could have been an awesome costume to get, say, after his Ascension quest, or even the Land of Challenge. Gondor has the least amount of changes, with the only difference being she was supposed to have goggles as part of her design, and I think that's pretty neat. Now onto the queens of Keves and Agnes, starting with Melia. Melia had 3 notable changes to both of her designs. For her queen design, it seems that Melia was supposed to have a veil, and it looks pretty nice. Nothing else I can really add or say anything about. Her hero design has 2 separate designs seen in the extra section. The first design has a black and white color scheme, 2 wings on her shoulders, a cap on her head, and she isn't holding her world ender, but a staff reminiscent of her original staff from Xenoblade 1. The whole design in general is reminiscent of her design from Xenoblade 1's main game, with it being kind of a souped up version of that design. It gives Melia the elegance she deserves as a queen, and is also just fucking cool in its own right. Speaking of Xenoblade 1, the next design is more similar to Melia's final design, but it's themed after Melia's outfit from Xenoblade 1's main game instead of Future Redeemed. I kinda do wish we got the first design or the final hero design, as it's absolutely amazing, man. Or even have both of these concepts as costumes. Come on, Monolith, you had the Archsage's Gauntlet. You could have slid a few costumes for the heroes as well. That's all I'm saying. On the contrary, Nia didn't have many design changes seen in the art book, as you can't change perfection, but we still have 2 notable observations. For her hero design, there's a concept that's near 1-to-1 with her final design, except she has slightly longer hair. I swear I'm not going crazy, alright? For her queen design, her kimono was longer than it was in the final game, which would make her complaints about that fit being hard to move in even funnier if we got this version. One extra tidbit about the heroes is that they got a cool little piece of background art in the art book that I'll show for the heroes previously mentioned. Here's Ethel, Kamaravi, Gondor, Melia, and Nia. Now we have the Mobius, which there are 4 who have unused designs. So let's get into it, starting with Dirk. Dirk had 2 unused designs, the first design having a red and brown color scheme, knee and shoulder pads, and a long coat. Honestly, a pretty cool design, and I kinda prefer it over the design we got, as it makes Dirk stand out just a bit more, since he's one of the main Mobius you fight constantly throughout the store. The second design seen in the extra section is quite a departure from what we eventually got. This design has a gold and blue color scheme, a long coat, and an undercut. This design is quite grotesque in my opinion, and a little too far for Dirk, and I am glad they went with the final design instead of this one. Yorn didn't change much outside of the revelation that I'll get to in just a bit. The first design is basically Yorn's design in the final game, but in an outfit that goes unused. The second design is Yorn in the same outfit, but he's skinny instead of fat. Definitely the biggest shock to see from the art book, and I feel that people would dislike Yorn way less than they do now, if he had this design. Anyone remember OMP? Anyone? Yeah, I thought so. Outside of them getting their shit kicked by Mio and giving her one of their best scenes, they're pretty forgettable. But with the art book, we finally get to see what they look like under the mask. Yeah, that'll definitely spawn some down bad posts on Twitter for sure. Now on to our last two Mobius, N and M. The two have similar design changes, so I'll tackle them back to back. The changes to N's design seen in the art book are that he had a different mask design and was going to have a cape. Honestly, he should have kept the cape, as it makes him look cooler and adds to the graph parallels. The same goes for M, as she also had a different mask design that covered most of her face and ears, a little window where her core crystal resides, and a red cape. I am a bit sad that these two missed out on having capes, especially when every other console had a cape. It would have made both of them look cooler and added a bit more to the tragedy of their characters personally. Now we're done with all the characters present in the main game, but there's also the main party from Feature Redeemed to discuss. The FR party didn't have any change design-wise, unlike Torna's main party, but there are some interesting weapon concepts that I'll still like to talk about, starting with the protagonist of Feature Redeemed, Matthew. It seems that Matthew was going to have a whip to grab enemies based on this concept. Maybe he would have been more of a jack of all trades instead of just being primarily CQC? But this is just me speculating. A's Monado Fencer went through some design changes that I'm sad didn't make the final cut. From the concepts, it looks like A's Monado could be split apart and sent off as projectiles. There's also another concept of A using the Monado like a whip, which is cool as fuck, man. But I guess since A's role is a healer, it wouldn't be too fitting. And besides, the Monado Fencer we got in FR is still fucking cool anyway. Nickel has one concept with him throwing projectiles from his big arms that looks similar to a shuriken or a boomerang. It's pretty cool, I can't even lie. But it probably wouldn't stop Nickel from only being on the team as my third Revive party member, and nothing else. Glimmer's concepts for a Wildfire Katara look amazing, with her being able to use her cello to send out a blast of energy based on these concepts. I would have loved to see this in game, and to see Glimmer use her cello in an offensive manner, rather than it being used exclusively for buffs and healing. Rex's concepts for his swords might be my personal favorite for just how cool it is. In the concepts, it shows Rex was going to combine both of his swords into a dual blade, and that's so fucking sick. Just imagining him going ham with that thing and the cool animations it could have brought with it, it's a bit of a shame. I still like the Numa sword fusion, but man, that shit would have been sick. Lastly, we have Niall, and she has some cool concepts for her ether accelerators. We see Niall rapidly firing the projectiles, focusing for the accelerators into one powerful beam, and channeling a barrage of projectiles from above. Seeing these concepts makes me even more sad that Niall was delegated to Hero Slot Hell, so we wouldn't get any control over her. And with that, we are finished with character designs. Definitely some cool designs being left on the cutting room floor, even if there isn't as much as Xenoblade 2's, but what are your favorite designs? Leave it in the comments. But we're not done with the art book just yet. Next up is...
It's good to keep a record.
Alright, now we have world concept art. I skipped it on this section when I covered Xenoblade 2's unused content, and I wanted to change that when covering Xenoblade 3's unused content. It also helps that Xenoblade 3's concept art is pretty cool. Starting with the AT region, we have some concept art of Milik Meadows. It looks similar to the Milik Meadows we have in the final game, with the addition of a waterfall and other ridges. We also get a look at some of the mountains in the AT region that would bring back some of that sense of scale that was in the earlier Xenoblade games. Next is a look at some mountains that combines the ridges of Gar Plain and parts of the Gormati Titan. I wish this concept was in the game because it's an amazing blend of the previous grassy plain areas. Now going from a cool concept to missed potential. We have Capricorn Peak. From the concepts, we see more purple colors, icicles, and frozen waterfalls and lakes. Honestly, the art gives Capricorn Peak so much more personality and makes the final version duller in comparison. At least Monolith got their snow area run back with the Black Mountains and Feature Redeemed. The other regions don't have that many major changes to them compared to their final iterations, so we'll just skip over those for more interesting things in the art book. Next up, we have some Ferronis concepts, and there's a ton of these bad boys, so let's dive right in. First, we have a concept for a town on the remnants of the Fallen Arm, which would have been so fucking cool to see in the game, man, but I guess it would clash with Xenoblade 3's war-torn setting. Next, we have a concept of the colony Mu Ferronis. It looks similar to the Ferronis in the final game, but it's 10 times the size, and has these massive tentacles that span across the Cadencia region. It's quite funny that this menacing Pharaonis will be run by a bunch of 12-year-olds, but it's still a cool concept nonetheless. We have this concept of a Pharaonis attached to a wall like a dam. Maybe this could have been a concept for a Kavesi colony in Erythia Sea? There are two concepts of a serpent-like Pharaonis, one Kavesi and the other Agnian. These look awesome and could have been a crazy super boss in the game, but they do stand out from the other Pharaonises, so I can understand why they were cut. Next, we have a concept of a collection of floating islands with a massive Pharaonis in the center. This and the Agnian serpent concept have a fantastical feeling to them compared to the game's more grounded tone, which makes me wonder what Xenoblade 3 could have been if it had more of a fantasy direction to it. Foreshadowing. Next up, we have this Pharaonis that is attached to the ends of two cliffs and seems to have a town inside. Another cool Pharaonis concept that we missed out on. Now we have this Agnian structure that is found on a snow peak. Not sure if it's a Pharaonis or not, but it still looks really cool and unique. We have this towering Pharaonis on a mountaintop, which to me looks like a Kavesi combination of Shavat and Solaris from Xenogears. Won't be the only piece of artwork that is reminiscent of things in past Xeno games. Next, we have a concept of a hand-like Pharaonis on a mountain, which would be really goofy to see move, which would make it worth preserving in the game for that alone. Now we have this little mole Levnis buried in the ground. Nothing much to say about it other than it's pretty cute. We have this concept of what looks to be a Levnis deep in the jungle. Looks pretty neat and would have been cool to see maybe in the deeper parts of Makta. We're going rapid fire with these next three concepts, so here we go. We have a snake-like Pharaonis, a tank-like Pharaonis, and a scorpion-like Pharaonis. These concepts look amazing, especially the snake Pharaonis and the scorpion Levnis. A lot of potential seen in those two designs for some cool boss fights. These next two concepts are out of the ordinary, starting with the concept of this massive battleship looking similar to Keves Castle's mech form. It looks so fucking cool, man. It would have been so imposing to see this thing flying around. The other concept we have looks more like a moving fortress with its little legs and such. This concept is the most standout artwork so far, as it looks nothing like a Pharaonis or a Levnis. Here we have this 2-in-1 Pharaonis that can transform from robot to vehicle form. It reminds me of the Skells from Xenoblade X, and man, I miss the Skells. Give us more traversal methods in the next game, Monolith. Here's the concept of a broken Pharaonis on what seems to be Letheria from Xenoblade 2. I thought it was Erythia at first, but it has way more in common with Letheria than Erythia. It was probably used for concept purposes, which would make sense. Lastly, we have some concepts for Ethel and Kamaravi's Pharaonises. For Ethel, her Pharaonis has a few design differences, with a light blue and gold design, a white and gold insect-like design, and a chunky gold and chrome design. Cool designs overall, but I do prefer the sleekness and elegance of the final design. Kamaravi's Pharaonis has a lot more design changes than Ethel's and is more varied. There was a design that was bulkier with more armor, one that went more into the samurai aesthetic, a slimmer design with massive shoulder pads, another sharp design with a long cape, a design with inverted colors, and a design that looks straight out of a mecha anime. No lie, I kinda wish we saw that last one in game, as it looks so fucking cool, man. Next, we'll talk about two interesting pieces of concept art, starting with this one. This shows an early version of Aionios as our main party looks out at a beautiful vista of the Aionios landscape. The designs for the main party were drastically different from what we have today, but we still had what looks to be Taion and a Hyantia, but the two up front are the most interesting. The girl looks very similar to one of Mio's earlier concepts found in the extra section, right down to the braided ponytail. We may have found a link for the girl, but the guy is a different story. As you can tell, that is not Noah, or at least not the Noah we see throughout the art book and in game. This guy looks more reminiscent of Rex and looks to be wielding the Monado Rex rather than the Lucky 7. The other concept art gives us a better look at the proto version of our main party with even more differences. Senna is wearing a different outfit and is wielding a massive sword compared to her hammer in the final game. The most notable change in this artwork is the absence of a certain party member. Lance is nowhere to be seen in this concept art, with his spot being taken by Guernica Vandam instead. It would have been cool to see Vandam being a part of the main party for the whole game instead of dying early on, but I wouldn't lose Lance for anything. But the second concept also has this massive quadruple mechanical titan that looks so fucking sick. Maybe it could have been an early version of a Pharaonis? Who knows, I'm just speculating, man. Overall, these two concepts give me some fantasy vibes compared to what we have in the final game. Not as drastic as Xenoblade 2's push into that aesthetic, but still more than what we got in the final game. Now, the last few concepts we have left concern everyone's biggest question mark after finishing Xenoblade 3, Origin. This big ball in the center of Aionios has some of the most beautiful art made for it, and some pieces that especially caught my intrigue. First, we have this artwork of a lone building in the center of endless water and giant golden monoliths. I'll get back to those monoliths in just a bit, but maybe this could have been a concept of a proto-auditorium. It's more mysterious and unsettling with this lone building with a broken arch surrounded by water that spans endlessly and massive monoliths. The next concept shows a collection of golden monoliths from the previous artwork being organized into neat rows. These monoliths bear a resemblance to the save point monoliths from Xenogears, which, judging by how much Xenoblade 3 parallels Takahashi's first directorial work and how these monoliths worked in Xenogears, I can say these were probably a concept of the data of the souls within Origin. Maybe these were a little too on the nose, or they just went with a different idea, like in the final game, with the data bearing more resemblance to core crystals instead. But speaking of on the nose, we have the final concept, and it's still the most insane piece of art that come out of both of these art books. In this piece of art, we see some platforms moving toward a distorted space, which looks similar to the final arena for Alpha and Future Redeemed. But that isn't the crazy part of this art. What we see on the sides of this art are multiple copies of a Zohar. The Zohar depicted is not the conduit, but the Xenosaga Zohar, right down to the angular sides and jewel in the center. Why this was here in the first place is a huge mystery. With Future Redeemed released and it having heavy nods to Xenosaga through the radio scene and post-credits, maybe this was them testing the waters with more explicit references? But I don't even know how Ulrus and Bionis would even get their hands on not only one Zohar, but multiple, unless there's Trinity processor shenanigans ensued. This was definitely the concept, that's for sure. But that's all we have for world design and the art book in general. Some awesome art made by Monolith's art team that was left unused. There was some great potential in the pieces, especially some of the Furanis and Levin's designs. What was your favorite piece of world art? Leave it in the comments. If you want to get your hands on this incredible art, the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Aionios Moments art book is up for sale, and you can purchase it using these links/storefronts in the top right corner and in the description. This isn't a paid ad or anything. I just want to support this amazing art book made by some of the most talented people in the industry. Alright, next up.
It's good to keep a record.
Now with the art book done, time to head into some unused graphics. There isn't as many unused graphics compared to Xenoblade 2, but there are still some interesting ones in here. The first graphic is called Icon Kara Battle 0, which contains all of the battle icons for our party members. There exist 12 open slots, with 2 of those being taken up by a black silhouette of Noah's battle icon as a placeholder. At first glance, you might think it's a placeholder for our 2 DLC heroes, Ino and Masha, but on the updated version of this graphic, Ino and Masha's icons appear on the right of Moamba, with the 2 placeholder icons being removed. These 2 icons were instead placeholders for heroes that we'll get into in just a little bit. Next up, we have some unfinished colony icons. The art is wildly inconsistent, and some of the art is recognizable from the Aionios Moments art book, like the Furanis deep in the jungle in the bottom left. Next are some unused character icons. These icons use some of the older art for the characters like Noah's baby face, Uni's older jacket, and Lanz's blue undershirt. 3D icons for Noah, Uni, and Mio are darkened with the word talent written in Japanese. What this could have possibly meant is unknown. They have the file name strm.ch thumb 001_0, similar to the icons used for leveling up at rest spots, so it maybe had something to do with that. The next 3 graphics are screenshots from a debug build of an early version of the game. We get the typical debug information like CPU, GPU, and VRAM values, and the resolution, along with the camera position, cutscene name, and a number of cuts in the scene. The most notable changes in this build, compared to the final one, are in the 3rd screenshot, with our main party fighting in Colony 4. The blade on Mio's dual moon blades is blue instead of yellow, and none of our main party's blades have the Ouroboros symbol on them. On the topic of debug screenshots, we have this debug screenshot of the chapter save screen, with the typical debug information you'd expect. Next, we have the dummy event thumbnail. This is typical for the Xenoblade games to have a dummy image or file for events, with Xenoblade 3's being an image of Noah in his military outfit. There are 20 copies of this image. Next up is the graphic titled STRM Hero Pick, and there are 21 copies of this image, and it's just the all-black Ethel concept we discussed earlier. This graphic does tell us when this art was completed, which is June 21st, 2019. This is the earliest known date a design was done date-wise, with the main party's designs being completed in late 2019 and into 2020. Lastly, we have the graphic STRM Training Thumb 0010, which has 29 other copies. From the file name, it seems that this was meant to be used as thumbnails for the combat drills, which have none, so they go unused. Very interesting what the thumbnails could have been. And that's all for Unused Graphics. I skipped over a few, which we brought up in a later section, but some interesting ones in here for sure. And it's fascinating to look at some early assets and graphics. What was your favorite graphic? Put it down in the comments. Now, on to...
It's good to keep a record.
Test maps are common in games to test out functions and properties of said game, and Xenoblade is no exception. Xenoblade 3 has a test map of its own for its features. The test map is similar to the one featured in Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition, with the Xenoblade 3 exclusive things being added in, of course. The footage of this test map was provided by Xenoblade 7, so shout out to this guy for showing off this test map. In the test map, we can see the models for the Franz Hulks, Fabricators, Trick Gates, and the rest spots, but they are all non-interactable. Through the footage, you can see tests for climbing, rail grinding, swimming, poison water, water currents, slopes and steep slopes, slides, footsteps on different terrains, and kill zones. There are also some leftovers from Dee's test map, like a textureless siren. Overall, some very interesting things to see in this test map. If you want to see the full video, I'll put it in the right hand corner and in the description. Next up, we have...
It's good to keep a record.
Remember the placeholder images and graphics I skipped and mentioned I'll get back to in a later section? Now is that time. Those two placeholder icons were meant to be used by Nimue and Yorin, seen from the version 1.1 version of Icon Job 2.0, with their weapon icons that were later removed in later versions and replaced with a blank space. Nimue and Yorin also have dummy chain order icons, using a silhouetted Noah chain order graphic with the Lucky 7 gauntlet on his arm, with the names Nimue and Yorin in Japanese. There's also an interesting graphic about a party member who's already in the game. That's right, the GOAT, Mwamba. Mwamba has a chain order graphic, which is interesting considering he dies in the chapter before you get chain attacks. Maybe you were supposed to get chain attacks in chapter 1 instead of chapter 2, or maybe he was going to come back along with Kamaravi and Miyabi in chapter 6, or even maybe he was supposed to be a New Game Plus party member. Copium. Honestly, I'm kind of sad that these guys were cut, as they could have been great additions for New Game Plus, as there's no reason to do it because all of the usual New Game Plus features are given to you after being in the game anyway. It would have given some incentive to do it outside of restarting the game with all your stats and gear. Maybe we were just spoiled by Xenoblade 2's incredible New Game Plus. Would you have loved these characters playable as heroes? Leave it in the comments. Alright, next up is...
It's good to keep a record.
This next one is an interesting find for sure. In the Korean Future Redeemed reveal trailer, the music used is an early version of New Battle and Future Awaits, with Future Awaits being sung by a different singer instead of Joanne Hogg. Here, take a listen.
ビウスがいなくたって変わらない。
ナイル。
結局人が人を殺すんだ。
メリアから聞いてはいたよ。アルビースからの贈り物だって。
ここが。
ああ、我々リベレーターの拠点だ。
そうまでして我らを消し去りたいか。神よ。
今はこっちのがいい。自分で決められるから。
本当は誰と戦わなきゃいけないか、それだけは分かったから。
理想の世界を築いたはずなのに、人は先を求めてしまった。
頭お花畑かよ。
Interestingly, these versions are only on the Korean version of the trailer, but it's still a cool piece of unused content, even if the final versions are better.
It's good to keep a record.
Now on to our final section, that being unused voice lines. There are a ton of unused voices, like
Sheltering!
So I'll be noting the more notable ones in this video. Most of the unused voice lines are characters saying reaction arts that they don't usually have, like for example, Nia saying break, but not having a single break art, and Tombstone rematch lines.
Break!
It would be rude to only fight it once, right?
But there are still a couple of interesting ones though. Starting with Moamba. Moamba has a whole suite of voice lines for being unlocked as a hero, selecting him as a hero, chain attack being ready, a chain attack intro, a chain order voice line, and other battle voice lines.
Let's smash this mission! For the castle! I'm raring to go. Let's fight then, to the end. Folks? Okay, let's do it! Whenever you're ready. Let's show them we mean business. Want to try out my plan? Listen, I've got an idea. That's the stuff. Watch this. What you think of this? Try this on for size. Eat this! Not yet. This one's got your name on it. How's that? We're gonna win. One down. Keep it up a little longer. Ha ha! Bam!
Definitely shows that he was supposed to be in the party for longer or be a permanent hero at some point. There's a voice line for an unused art called Sheltering for the main party.
Sheltering!
Sheltering! Sheltering!
Sheltering! Sheltering!
Sheltering!
Maybe this voice line would have been used for Yorn's scrapped class? Melia has lines for some of her older arts, like Ether Blast, Reflection, and Mind Blast, along with the main party having a line for Hypnotize.
Ether Blast! Reflection! Mind Blast!
Mind Blast!
Mind Blast! Mind Blast!
Mind Blast! Mind Blast!
Mind Blast!
Hypnotize!
Hypnotize! Hypnotize!
Hypnotize! Hypnotize!
Hypnotize!
There are some lines that seems like it was going to be used for some important boss fights from the main party.
And I would never see them sad! I won't yield! No matter how hard you push me! That would hurt the ones I love! Oh, thank the flames! Come on! It's time we finished this! Guys? Thank you. Alright, time to spin this around! Yes, they're back to normal! Mio, guys, are you all okay?
I was terrified! For so long! I was scared of disappearing, without a trace. All my memories of my friends gone. We will seize our destiny!
He was the weak one, but he screwed up his courage!
Lapidaris also has 3 unused arts, Clay Ripper, Secret Blossom, and State of Grace, used by Masha and the main party.
Glare Ripper! Secret Blossom! State of Grace!
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 A and Shulk have voice lines for Unused Arts, Swordbright, and Monado Speed.
Swordbright.
Monado Speed!
The FR party has voice lines for being in hazardous terrain, despite none being present in Future Redeemed.
I don't feel so good.
Must be really pushed through.
Yeah, got to hurry.
Don't want to hang around in this.
We better get out of this. Ugh, nasty.
Niall has a chain attack start voice line despite not being playable, which still burns.
Show them what we can do.
And has some unused voice lines for being enraged and defeating the main party and Niall.
Don't stand in my way! Cease your thrashing! You struggle yet? Well then, that's as far as you go, Alpha. You dare continue to resist? Today you meet your end, Alpha.
The same also goes for Niall.
All is for the sake of stamping out the old world.
Once again, there are a ton of unused voice lines, so if you want to listen to them all yourselves, the videos will be in the top right corner and in the description. And we have now reached the end of this video. It's always interesting to see assets that never made the final cut, and Xenoblade 3 is no exception to this. Despite it having a longer dev schedule, it still had as many interesting unused tidbits as Xenoblade 2, and that game had a lot of stuff. If you have any notable things that you've liked, or that I've missed something somehow, it happens, please put it in the comments. A small update on the channel. The Modica video has taken longer than expected, but progress is being made, and it should be done during May, if I can edit the whole thing before MomoCon. Also, I'll be at MomoCon again with some Xenotubers, so if you want to meet us, you can there. The next video after that should be a video on Xenoblade's UI, as I think it's an underappreciated aspect of the games. After that should be the chunky tournament retrospective, before going into Xenoblade 1, which seems to be shaping up as my longest video yet. So it looks like this summer will be busy. That's all for my update. This is Shift the Pyro, and I'll see you guys next time.